Brother Chris Smith agreed to lead a prayer for us as we begin this morning.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your wonderful blessings. We praise you, Father. We thank you for the time we had this morning to come together to worship you. We thank you, Father, for this opportunity we have now to enjoy this class, studying together, looking at your word. Please help us, Father. We ask you to please be with the teacher and all the teachers in our classes, Father. Be Brother Larry this morning as well. Help us all just listen with open hearts and open minds as we look at your word. Please help us, Lord, to be with us now. In Christ's name.
Thank you so much. Good, thank you. Right at the end of chapter 2, when we stopped last week, Moses had fled Egypt, you remember, because of his killing of the Egyptian, and he realized it's known, he flees, and he goes to Midian, and what happens to Moses in Midian? Remember, he's there 40 years. He's 40 years in Egypt. We learned from the New Testament, 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in Midian. What happens there? He finds a wife. Many things happen, obviously, but substantially, he finds a wife. He has a son. We learn later he has 2 sons. But here it just mentions one of them. He's down in Midian. He goes to a well. He sees this. He meets these daughters of Jethro or Reuel, the priest of Midian. Winds up marrying one of the daughters, and his son may be interesting. The first son, Gershom, his name means I've been a stranger in a foreign land. Try to think about Moses just a second. Hebrew, born in Egypt, raised first, I think, by his mother, but then raised in the palace of Pharaoh. Kind of becomes an outcast there. He's a master in some ways. He's a prince, you might say, in some ways, in the palace of Pharaoh. But then he becomes an outcast, and now he's down in Midian, and you can imagine Moses says, who am I? Who am I? He'd go tell God, who am I? But try to think about that. He names his son, maybe this is significant, stranger in a foreign land. I wanted to just mention briefly about Midian, where it's located. This is important, at least if you want to try to synchronize things that are going to happen a little bit later. I think it's very interesting. But most all the maps you will see have Midian over there in the northwest part of Arabia, northwest corner of Saudi Arabia, present day Saudi Arabia. This is another map that I got from somewhere, and you'll see it kind of in the same place, but you also see that whoever put that map together, if you look on the east side of that Sinai Peninsula, they've written Midian with a question mark that maybe is there. And the reason that they put that question mark is we'll run into a little bit later today, I think. This map shows interesting, worth pointing out. This map shows Mount Sinai there on the Sinai Peninsula, and that's the reason they have Midian over there, as you'll see in just a little bit. It happened in the course of those many days that the king of Egypt died, and the sons of Israel sighed because of the slavery, and they cried out, and they cried for help because of their slavery rose up to God. The king of Egypt, that apparently Moses had fled from, had died. And if you take that to be 40 years prior, which Stephen seems to indicate that's true, probably this would have had to have been that Pharaoh Amenhotep II. Maybe this is my surmising, but there's a lot of evidence that this is probably the Pharaoh of the Exodus. The one before him reigned for 50 years. So if Moses was in Midian for 40 years, it's not likely that it would have been that one. It would have been this next one that died. And I just want to show you just really quickly. That's his tomb. Both of those tombs, their tombs have been uncovered. You went down in the mountain, you went down, I don't know, I think it's maybe 30 or 40 meters depth-wise, much longer than that, going down these stairs. You climb your way down, and you see this tomb. That's a picture of the tomb, the room, and the central room. He has about 8 or 10 rooms, but the central room where he's buried. It's got his little notes about the Book of the Dead up on the wall. Many of those pharaohs had this at that time. His mummy's in Cairo now. Y'all worry about your wrinkles. You're doing pretty good. In his tomb, here on the right, these things are recovered out of his tomb. What do you think those are? They're the gods that are protected. You see anything interesting there? By the way, they had 1,500 of them, so 1,500 different ones. So these are just a few. Yeah. I don't know. He might. No, that's right. They didn't protect him. But what do you see there on the front? It's a calf, a cow. One of their great goddesses was Hathor, and we'll see more about that later on. But anyway, I just want you. I think the interesting connections. I think here's this guy who is what's this 3,500 years ago now, and we know a lot about the times they lived in, about how they worshiped, about how they buried, how they buried their kings, or even not just the king, but some of the higher administrators. They would get these fancy burials, and they would have their gods there to protect them. Sometimes they would even kill their servants and bury them with them, so their servants would be there, to serve them. Anyway. Right at the end of chapter 2, God heard their groaning. God remembered his covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God saw the sons of Israel, and God knew them. Or actually, literally, it just says God knew. God knew. He heard, he remembered, he saw, and he knew. And this is going to come up again as we go into the book of Exodus. Anybody want to mention something from chapter 2 before we go on? Now Moses was pasturing the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Many versions say behind the wilderness or backside or something like that. I just put Young's literal translation because I thought it was interesting to read what it says, the way it has it worded. Moses hath been feeding the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, priest of Midian, and he leadeth the flock behind the wilderness, and cometh in unto the mountain of God to Horeb. What was Horeb? Those of you who studied the Exodus before or other Old Testament. Sorry? Sorry, I couldn't hear you, brother. Most people think that Horeb was another name for Sinai. As you go on in Exodus, he's going to talk about Sinai, but some people think Sinai was a mountain in the Horeb range. Okay? Some people think Horeb was just another name for Sinai. I'm not really sure about it. But what's really interesting is that Moses is pasturing his sheep in Midian with his father-in-law, the Midianite, and he comes to this mountain. He comes to the mountain of God. Lo and behold, a little bit later, he's going to say, bring those people out and serve me in this mountain. You're going to serve me in this mountain. So it's possible, I think it's probable that he is, wherever Midian is, he's coming to the region of Mount Sinai, and that's where God appears to him. So that's just an interesting thing to bear in mind as we go on. Again, I've used the literal, what is it? Legacy Standard Bible, because of the way it treats the word Lord and Jehovah and Yahweh, just so we can see the difference. The angel of Yahweh appeared to him in a blazing fire from the midst of the bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, yet was not consumed. Moses recognized there's something strange here. It's not being consumed. He says, I'll turn aside and see this sight, why it's not burned up. And Yahweh saw that he had turned aside to look, so God called to him from the midst of the bush. And he said, Moses, Moses, and he tells him to not come near, remove his sandals, and he's standing on holy ground. He also says in verse 6, I'm the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, and he was afraid to look at God. So here in just a few verses, we have Yahweh, we have God, we have the angel of Yahweh. And what strikes you as you read that, as you just read that section? What do you think? I mean, this is not the first time Yahweh has been used. That's not the point here. But you have all these together. What does it make you think? Yeah, okay. However you take those names, here is something distinct. Presence of God himself. Holy ground because of that. Take off your shoes and approach. I think God is marking for Moses something critical is about to happen. Something critical is happening as he sees this. Let me just mention something, and I don't know for sure about this, but it says the angel of Yahweh appeared in the bush, and then it says that Yahweh spoke from the bush. The word angel in the Old Testament, it means messenger. Well, I think in the New Testament it does too, but in the Old Testament, the word angel means messenger. And it's sometimes used about what we think of as angels, but sometimes it's used to talk about people, or sometimes it's used to talk about something that might serve as a message, something that might be carrying a message. I don't know what this means here, but there are many occurrences in the Old Testament of the angel of Jehovah, the angel of Yahweh, where many people, if you read carefully the context, it suggests that there's something, that it may be Yahweh himself. It may be a representation of God himself. Many people think a representation of Christ, the presence of Christ in the Old Testament. I'm not insisting on that, but if you read carefully, remember 1 Corinthians 10, the rock was Christ. The rock in the wilderness was Christ. There's some significance to that maybe it's beyond our comprehension, but it's something that I think we're meant to reflect on.
Later on in the New Testament, it's used where he talks about
And that's carried over in the New Testament, isn't it, that idea? They're not dead. I'm not the God of the dead. Yeah, amen. Keep. Yes. 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 Yes, and yeah. Well, let's watch for this, because it comes up again in Exodus. It'll come up again in Exodus, and we can watch for this. And remember, we are stubborn and stiff-necked and ignorant people, right? We're trying to learn. We're trying to see what God's revealing. Well, here from Moses, God's telling him, God's revealing him something. As John mentioned, not I was the God, I am the God. And then in the next section, the section after this, but he's going to jump right into that question. I am who I am, and we're going to talk about that this morning.
Well, let me just say, context is important, what you said, and other places in the Bible, especially the New Testament, as was mentioned. I think if you have a cross-reference Bible, you need to look up other places where where the angel of the Lord is used. I kind of choose to say, well, it must be God, unless it seems like it would not fit.
It's good advice, and it's probably beyond the scope, beyond what we can do here in this class. But if you're interested in that, look at several examples where this angel of His presence, angel of Jehovah, angel of the Lord, in most of your versions. Read it carefully and see what you think about that. At the very least, it ought to be designed. We ought to take it and make us stop and think a little bit. How do we put other passages together that might help us understand? God tells Moses, verse 7, I've seen the affliction of my people in Egypt. I've heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their suffering. I've come down to deliver them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up. It tells about the land, the people that are going to be, the people that are living in that land, and of course later says they're going to be cast out. He's seen the oppression with which the Egyptians are oppressing them. If we read this carefully, there's a lot of repetition of this idea. Remember in the verses last week, the hard labor which they brutally imposed on them, it was really an emphasis given on the suffering that they were going through. And so he tells him, I'm going to send you and bring them out. Moses says, who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt? And of course, this is the beginning of several verses where several arguments, you might say, that Moses makes that I don't want to do this. I'm not the one to do this. The Lord tells him, certainly I will be with you, and this will be a sign to you that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God at this mountain. This mountain Horeb, you will serve God here. Some of your versions, I think, say worship God here. But it's really the word. Ben talked about this, I think, in our first lesson about worship. Serving and worship. Sometimes the words merge together. Ben.
Is this the first place where God calls them my people? I just think it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
I don't know for sure, but that's worth certainly looking into. I probably read that and thought about it, but I don't remember right now if it is. But
It's that previous few verses that I think the key thing is God is helping Moses make the connection between I'm the same God that was with Abraham, gave him the promises, gave Isaac, Jacob the promises. It's still me. I'm still the same one.
yes,
And now I can't remember one before then. And I say, not only am I their God, these are my
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned it because that really is an important point for what follows, I believe. It's really about my relationship with my people, my covenant. I will be their God and they will be my people. This is really in the world of gods that was unknown. What were the gods like of the Egyptians? Crocodiles, birds, cows, moon discs. This one married this one and gave rise to this one, and they fought, and you better watch out. You better bring enough, bring enough gifts or whatever to make sure they don't turn on you. But no, now what we're about to see, God is unfolding this to them. No, my God, my people, my nature. Let's look at this. Who shall I say? They will say to me, what's his name? What's this God's name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am, or I am that I am, or some version might have, I am that am. Thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you. He says more, and we're going to get into that, but just stop right there and look at that answer. If we were in the schoolyard, and one kid says, what's your name? I am who I am. It's not like that. But what do you think, what's God conveying to Moses now? What's Moses supposed to take from him? How's he going to convince the Israelites of what's in that phrase? Yeah.
He's saying, I'm going to go there and say, you see me. He's probably reminding them all that I'm not going to serve you to deal on anything else.
Yes. And that was going to be their natural response, wasn't it? It was going to be their natural response. Which one are you talking about? That's right. Yeah.
It's also present tense form of be.
Yes.
It's not I was.
Yeah.
I will be. I am.
Yeah. It's and actually in Hebrew it's they call present. It's imperfect form. It's the continuing presence, continuing, ongoing. I am. I can't. Yes.
And then it's such a strong connection. When Jesus is confronted and he said, before Abraham was, I am. And it set their teeth on edge and they sought to kill him immediately.
Yes.
It carried such a weight
Yeah.
with the Jewish people.
Yes, because this had a meaning to them. It carried something. I'm not saying it did when they're down in Egypt. I think they had to learn. But in Jesus' day, this meant something to the Jews. This meant something about God's nature and God's character. Bill, were you going to say something? Look, I'm just throwing out. Many people have come up with lots of ideas about how can we think about this. I am the one who is. I am the one who exists. I am the one who is ever existing. I'm the one who exists, not dependent on anything else. I'm the one who is. I don't mean this irreverent at all, but I am is. I am being. I am, and I'm not trying to push in that direction. I'm just trying to get us to think about. He's telling about his nature. He's telling about that he has no beginning and no end.
Not only is he saying that, but he's also saying,
something that they had, that the Egyptians and the Israelites, if they were absorbing that way of thinking, they had not known. They had not been able to think that way, Pat. Yes. 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 Yeah. And just, this is just a good illustration, a very good illustration about why being Christians implies we are building, we are inheriting, we should be Old Testament Christians in a sense. I know they weren't having Christians then, but we should be grounded in that, in where these things that Jesus said, where did they come from? Paul, where did they come from, Brother John?
Verse 7, I am the New Testament, I am the bread of life, I am the light of the world, I am the door, I am the shed, I am the resurrection of life, I am the way, truth, life, I am the true life.
Yeah.
That phrase means a lot throughout the
Yes.
scriptures, and it's a declaration of kingship, it's a declaration of creation, or creator.
Creator. Absolutely. All those things it's bringing to the forefront for a Jew who knew his scriptures, for us who listening to this. We can't do it today, but when we get to Exodus 33 and 34, you might look ahead if you get a chance. You won't believe what God says here about this. Very, very interesting, I think. But we'll build up to that as we're going.
It was interesting that he could be so many things. They had so many gods in Egypt. So he's not going to be pigeonholed as the god of this or the god of that. This is my name. But you gave a reference in your question 3. That's when he decided to modify. I am the Lord, which means power. I'm the power that's going to free you. And as the story develops in their history, he becomes many things necessary for them.
Yeah.
He's the source of all good.
Yeah. Let's think about that, but we want to be sure to get through this as we this morning, if at all possible. I am the Lord. I am Yahweh. It would be the Old Testament rendering of that. I am Yahweh. I am Yahweh. I am. We're going to see this right now. Yahweh. In most all of our Old Testaments, I am the Lord. All caps. When you see that, it's this word YHWH or YHVH in Hebrew. And look what God says about it. This is my name forever. First of all, in verse 15, say to the sons of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is my memorial name from generation to generation in the LSB. A few translations have Jehovah there. The LSB and the New Living Translation, I believe that is, has Yahweh, trying to show the distinction between the word Lord, which is also used of God, and the word Lord, all caps, which is this word Yahweh, Jehovah. In some years back, they were translating that or pronouncing that Jehovah. God says, this is my name. This is my name from generation to generation. This is my memorial name. And all the things we've been talking about, I am who I am. This is also drawn from that same verb, to be, Yahweh is drawn from the, I don't know, the existing one, the self-existing one, the one who is. It's drawn from that same Hebrew verb. But he says, this is my name. I want you to think about something. I think it's maybe on the next slide. Calling on the name of Yahweh or Jehovah. Reach all the way back to Genesis 4. They began to call on the name of Yahweh. What could that mean? I'm going to put a couple other verses up here. Abraham builds an altar and he calls on the name of Yahweh. Isaac, the same thing. What did that carry with it? What did that idea carry with it?
The great power of the thing that they understood, or
Yeah.
they had some understanding.
Yeah. You know, I think, let me show one more verse because there's an indication in Exodus 6 that they did not know, that name was not known to them until now. So I don't know whether Moses wrote back in Genesis about it, you know, putting it there because he's writing it in his day and he's putting it there. But he says they called on the name. And it suggests to me that they knew the name, but they really didn't know. They really did not know what it meant. Seth's descendants, Seth's son Enosh, men began then to call on the name of the Lord, call on the name of Yahweh. I think it's suggesting they began to worship together. Maybe I don't know if that's right or not, but the idea they began to hold up the name of God in some way that became recognized. Think about the family of Cain, who went in a different direction. The family of Seth, they call on the name of Yahweh.
I think also it might have something to do with the proper response to God.
Yes.
Because in the New Testament, those that call on the name of the Lord will be saved.
Yes.
And I think it had to do with the response of, what are we wanting out of them?
Yeah.
What are we wanting out of them, like what he wants out of us.
That's exactly right. And think back before Revelation, before written Revelation, what was the response? What was the response that was required or expected? What does Romans 1 say?
Be thankful.
Yeah, acknowledge him and be thankful. Acknowledge that there's a God and be thankful. You know, Abel, when he brings his offering, he's acknowledging that there's a God and he's being thankful. And before the written revelation, they know about God. They don't know much detail. They don't know, they haven't been given instruction about, at least not written instruction, not written law. But they know there's a God. They know from creation that there's a God. They begin to call on his name. And Chris is absolutely right. In the New Testament, what do the New Testament writers make of this? Calling on the name, they quote passages calling on the name of Yahweh, and they apply it to who? Jesus Christ. They apply it to Jesus Christ. Can you believe it? They are taking, I think maybe I have it on this next. Acts 2. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Quoting Joel. Joel says Yahweh. Everyone who calls on the name of Yahweh, of Jehovah, will be saved. And now Peter is quoting that in Acts 2. And then he's telling, what does he say? Therefore let all the house of Israel know for certain that God has made him Lord and Christ. He's doing it in Greek, of course, but he has made him call on his name, just like Joel said, call on the name of Yahweh.
In Acts 22:16, Paul's recounting his conversion. Now why are you waiting to rise
calling on to be saved, right? To be delivered. What do I do to be delivered? Call on the name, not the word, not the title, but call on the one it stands for. Call on the one that name stands for. So God, the name Yahweh, the name Jehovah, it stood for the character of God. It stood for who he was, the one who existed, the one who accounted for everything else. He's taken that from Joel chapter 2. Now here's another one. Paul, let him who boast in the Lord. He's quoting Jeremiah. Jeremiah says, boast in Yahweh, boast in the name of boast in that I am Yahweh. Paul applying it to Jesus. He goes on to say, gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He ties those together. I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm the one who had that promise, kept that promise going. I'm the one they were saved by, they were delivered by, they trusted in, they called on my name. I'm that one, and my name is Yahweh. My name is Jehovah. So he's heard what's happened. He's going to bring them out. They will listen to your voice, and you with the elders of Israel will come to the king of Egypt, and you will say to him, Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. So now let us go 3 days' journey in the wilderness that we may sacrifice to Yahweh our God. Now, God goes on to tell him, Jehovah goes on to tell him, he's not going to let you go. No matter what happens down there, he's not going to let you go until I finally make this happen, he says, with a strong hand. But he's preparing Moses to go down there and get that done. Ending this chapter, I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Think about that. That's interesting, isn't it? Pharaoh is not going to let them go, but these people are going to be favored in the sight of the Egyptians. And it will be that when you go, you will not go empty. Every woman shall ask of her neighbor, and the woman who lives in her house for articles of silver and articles of gold and clothing, and you will put them on your sons and daughters, and thus you will plunder the Egyptian. I think the King James says you will borrow, but that's not the right word. You will ask. You will ask of them, and they will give it to you. The people of Egypt will give it to you because of what they think. I don't know how God gave the favor to them, but because of what they think about the people of Israel, they will give them wealth, and they'll go out. Is that the first or second? Okay, good, thanks. They'll go out, God had told Abraham, with great substance. They will serve as they will serve down in Egypt as slaves, but afterward they will come out with many possessions. They will come out with great substance. Remember last time I was mentioning, under Joseph's rule, Jacob and his family, I think the indication is they did quite well. They prospered. They grew to a mighty people. They had houses. Remember the doorposts? They lived in houses in Egypt. I think they did well, but the time come that they were enslaved and oppressed and broken down, and yet when they come out, you'll come out with great substance because the Egyptians are going to give these things to you. Anybody have a thought about that?
There's just a good chance they were giving back what they took from them when they became slaves.
Great point. Their wages for their slavery, maybe you might look at it in that way.
You gotta look back and remember Joseph was one that, during the times of the famine, all this wealth that Egypt had came from his giving the wisdom of God to him.
he's taking care of his people. They don't know it, but he's taking care of his people. He's preparing the way for them to come out. He's prepared a leader to bring them out. So Moses in chapter 4 says, what if they will not believe me and will not listen to my voice, but they will say, Yahweh has not appeared to you. They would say to Moses, who are you? Who are you? And, how do we know that? This makes me think that Yahweh was not completely foreign to them, that the idea of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was not completely foreign to them, even though they had been enslaved and influenced not in a good way in Egypt. We're going to see they had lots of things to learn. But they would say, Yahweh has not appeared to you. How do we know that Yahweh appeared to you? And of course, God shows him by what? I meant to bring my walking stick. Throw it down, it becomes a serpent, grab it by the tail. Never grab a serpent by the tail. Grab it by the tail and it becomes a rod. Put your hand in your cloak, pull it out, and it's, our versions say leprous, it's affected, it's infected, it's stricken, his hand is stricken. He puts it back in and it's well again. God says, this is what you'll do. You'll stand in front of them and show them that, and they'll know that I've appeared to you. And if they still don't believe, then you'll take the water of the Nile and pour it on the ground and turn it into blood. So they may believe, verse 5, so they may believe that Yahweh, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob has appeared to you. Their history, their grandparents, their ancestors, they would have had some understanding of this. Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he has appeared, and they're going to know it. I'm almost at the end. Okay, that's good. Just the last few verses for this morning. I'm a heavy tongue and heavy lips, heavy mouth and heavy lips. I can't talk well. And the Lord tells him, I made all those things. Your brother can help you. Thank you for attention. Next week we have a lot of chapters to read. So read them because we won't get to go through each chapter. But read those chapters for week 3 in the workbook. Thank you.